On that day, in the refreshing forest near the town of Desaka, the Buddha Sumedha, in the presence of the monastic community, taught as follows. Monks, this is the town of Desaka, known for its prosperity, beauty, and abundance. The material life here is truly affluent and fulfilling. Throughout the streets, people display flowers that please the eye and arouse desire. Behind the windows are silk curtains, and in front of every house, beautiful and graceful girls are adorned with jewels, perfumes, and garlands. Games and merriment with drums and trumpets, melodious songs rise up like a stage in the heavenly realms. Monks, it is easy for you to go on alms rounds with rice and bread, with solid and soft food sufficient to fill your stomachs. But it is difficult for you to restrain the six senses, to maintain dignified conduct, uphold moral discipline, live a life of moderation and right conduct, without agitation, mental disturbance, or intellectual wavering. After giving this instruction, the teacher continued in a voice like thunder in the sky during rain. Monks, listen. Standing on a high peak is easier than seeing the beauty of a woman without looking. Standing on the edge of a pit of hot coals is easier than being in front of the alluring sounds of celestial beings without listening. The same applies to fragrances, delicious tastes, and soft touches. Monks, what do you think? Suppose there is a beautiful girl with a silk dress as thin as clouds, revealing her jade-like body with its curving lines. The girl is dancing a seductive dance and singing a song like a dove calling its mate, like a flower calling a butterfly. If there is a young man, full of youthful vigor, carrying two bowls full of oil with flames, forced to pass by the girl, the king's executioner, holding a sword, follows behind, saying to the young man, "You must not close your eyes or cover your ears, but go past the beautiful woman. Wherever you spill a drop of oil, your head will be severed from your neck." If you pass by the beautiful woman without spilling a single drop of oil, you will receive 1,000 gold coins. Monks, what do you think? Is it easy or difficult to put 1,000 gold coins in your pocket? The monks replied, "It is difficult." The Buddha continued, "It is easy to obtain 1,000 gold coins. Why? Because the young man fears the sword, fears his head being cut off, and fears losing his life. So he will be cautious and strive to be mindful. And as such, he will easily pass by the beautiful woman without spilling a drop of oil." To help the monks understand the truth that had been skillfully taught and exemplified, the Buddha continued, "Monks, wise individuals of the past, did not have a threatening sword behind them. And the trials, traps, and temptations were not just for the duration of a drumbeat, but for 7 days and 7 nights on a long journey, anywhere, anytime. The trials, temptations, and traps were not just one beautiful woman, but truly heavenly sights, sounds, smells, tastes, and touches. Yet the wise did not become heedless, but remained mindful, guarding their senses, and for 50 leagues they reached their destination, achieving not just 1,000 gold coins, but an entire kingdom." Having said this, the Buddha remained silent. After the monks requested 3 times, he recounted a past story as follows. In the time when King Brahmadatta ruled the kingdom of Benares, he had 100 sons, and the Bodhisattva was the youngest prince. The king was compassionate and generous. Every day in the palace, a Pratyekabuddha from the Himalayas would come for a meal. The king made offerings tirelessly without fail. The Bodhisattva, the youngest prince, rejoiced in his father's actions and sincerely and respectfully served them without lacking anything. One day, the prince thought, "I have 99 brothers, but only one kingdom. Now that my father is still alive with equal love, everyone has some possessions and wealth. But I don't know what will happen when my father passes away. The throne and fame easily lead to bloodshed and infatuate people. If I know it is a dangerous place, I should stay away. These Pratyekabuddhas have supernatural powers and know the past and future, so I will ask them about it." The next day, when the Pratyekabuddhas arrived, the prince brought purified water, filtered the water, washed their feet, dried them with a clean cloth, and offered them the finest foods. After they finished eating, the prince offered water and toothpicks and a white cloth to wipe their hands. When they had put away their bowls, the prince prostrated, sat to one side, and presented his concerns. "Venerable pure ascetics, I am in the realm of dust, with eyes clouded and full of dust, truly unable to know what is clear and what is turbid, not knowing what is good and what is bad, not knowing where to stay and where to go. The future is truly dark, uncertain, and unstable, so please compassionately guide me what should be done and what should not be done for my lasting peace. The eldest Pratyekabuddha gazed intently at the prince for a moment and then said softly, "Can the prince imagine the infinite vastness of the sky and the ocean? Yes, I can imagine it. The thoughts, the problems, the questions of the prince are also as immense and vast as that. These are the searches of a lifetime, 2 lifetimes, many hundreds of thousands of lifetimes of solitary hermits in the deep forest, of sages and ascetics from ancient times to the future. Here, does the prince pose a question with limits or without limits?" The prince was suddenly surprised, confused, and embarrassed. "Venerable ones, my mind is not vast enough to pose immense, limitless questions. Here, the future and happiness of a human life are truly small and trivial. The future and happiness of a human life must be limited to the most minimal and simplest needs. I will give an example. Like a flower seed in a ripe fruit, when the time comes, the peel will crack and the seed will burst out. That seed needs to rely on a place with enough soil, enough water, enough air, enough light, without insects, so that it can grow, receive dew, receive wind, receive moonlight, warm sunshine, and live a peaceful life and give color and fragrance. Venerable ones, I only want to be like that flower seed. That is the limited question I have." The eldest Pratyekabuddha smiled happily. "Truly humble is the dream of a prince. Because of the prince's virtuous heart, I will reveal to the prince that flower seed cannot live peacefully, giving color and fragrance in this kingdom. More specifically, the prince cannot have the kingdom." "That's right," the prince said. "That is also what I do not want. If my father passes the throne to me, I cannot accept it. Abandoning the eldest to establish the youngest is a source of disaster and disorder in the country. I want to say that, can I have some wealth and possessions to live with my brothers in harmony and peace? Even that little bit of wealth and possessions does not exist in this kingdom. If that flower seed falls on this kingdom, it will not survive, let alone give color and fragrance." Fearing that this virtuous prince would suffer, the eldest Pratyekabuddha added, "However, it will have another environment. The bursting strength of that flower seed must be a little stronger, and it will encounter a favorable environment. Not only will it live, but it will also grow strongly, giving many colors and fragrances, fresh and intense." The prince felt like he had grasped a life raft in the vast ocean. "Please compassionately guide me. Far away in the country of Gandhara, the city of Takasila, if the prince can reach there within 7 days, the prince will attain the kingdom. But I wonder if the prince can reach the destination safely when the journey is extremely dangerous." The eldest Pratyekabuddha said, "Yes." The prince nodded vigorously. "I truly dare not boast when I say that I can certainly reach it." The eldest Pratyekabuddha, as if reading the will and ability in this person, continued, "There are 2 paths to reach the kingdom of Gandhara. One path goes around the forest, less dangerous but far, up to 100 leagues. A week is not enough time to travel. The second path goes through the forests, only 50 leagues, and if you travel day and night, you can reach it in time. But this short path is both steep and dangerous, with poisonous insects and wild animals, and the trials and temptations of non-humans and demons. How does the prince assess his strength? It is not easy to take the kingdom. Or should you give up that idea? Reaching Gandhara safely and peacefully is more difficult than swimming across the ocean with both hands. The prince should think again. My situation is that I must take that flower, the flower of the kingdom. I will take it. Then go on your way immediately." The thing to remember and keep in mind, firmly as one, is that no matter what the circumstances, you must dwell in mindfulness, restrain the 6 senses, keep your moral conduct as bright as the full moon, live an ascetic life, and for 7 days and 7 nights, be diligent, awake, without a single thought of laziness, discouragement, or indolence. And in that way, the kingdom will be in the prince's hands. Now I will give you an amulet. But remember, this amulet only protects those who have no evil influence. After saying these words, the Pratyekabuddha chanted for a while and then gave the prince a talisman made of sand and a thread. He also instructed, normally keep it on your chest, maintain righteous energy, and you will be safe. When you feel the most dangerous, take this talisman, take this thread, tie it to your hair knot, and all kinds of non-humans from the 6 realms of desire upwards. The devas will help and protect you. while the demons, yakshas, and asuras will not dare to approach, let alone offend you. After giving the amulet, all the Pratyekabuddhas disappeared into the sky and returned to the Himalayas. The prince came to bid farewell to the king and queen, bid farewell to his confidants, friends, and subordinates, and made his intentions clear. 5 people in the group asked to go along. The prince advised, "That won't do. I believe in myself, so am going. As for you, I fear that the danger and temptation will take your lives along the way. Don't do anything beyond your ability." The 5 attendants said in unison, "How can we dare to fear danger and be tempted when we are with the prince?" Unable to refuse, the prince had to let them go with many careful instructions. They packed their luggage and set out when the world was still misty. They minimized rest and eating time. On the first day, they reached the head of the forest safely. Thinking of the words of the eldest Pratyekabuddha, the prince said to his subordinates, "The mountains and forests are beautiful. The trees are cool. We will walk comfortably without losing energy. But from here, we must be vigilant and dwell in mindfulness." After passing the first cluster of forests, the evening shadows had fallen, the tree shadows spread, and the mist was enchanting. A stream full of fragrance appeared before their eyes like a miracle. A small village with pavilions, with small, pretty houses, radiant with hanging flowers and lanterns, lay serenely and peacefully on a white stone background with clusters of yellow, orange, and purple flowers. The whole group paused pensively. The trail ran along the green lawn like a strip of white silk. The stone bridge was sparsely decorated with weeping willows. A girl as beautiful as a fairy stepped across with delicate steps. Holding on to a willow branch, her smile was enchantingly beautiful, and she uttered a golden aureole-like voice. "Please, Prince, stop your wandering steps. This is the Peach Blossom Spring Breeze Pavilion, and that is the One-Night Enchantment Tower. A place of elegance, a paradise on earth. It's getting dark, the journey is still far. Why not stop by for the night and let us fan by your pillow? Flowers bloom quickly and fade. How many moments are there in a spring night? Have fun and don't waste your youth." After saying this, a group of fairies parted the clouds and came out, their clothes as thin as mist, their figures graceful, their jade-like bodies revealed, shy and coy, their smiles seductive, their lips trembling. The 5 attendants' hearts pounded, their legs seemed to collapse, and they could no longer take another step. The prince was momentarily moved, but immediately returned to mindfulness, looking straight ahead, stepping evenly, as naturally majestic as a tiger general. Seeing this, the 5 subordinates were revived, and although weary and regretful, they had to follow. Suddenly, one person slowed down. The prince said, "Why can't you keep up with your friends?" "Your Highness, my leg hurts. I just need to sit and rest in this village for a moment, regain my strength, and I will set out immediately." The prince frowned. "Do you know that they are non-humans, yakshas? They use beauty to seduce you. Then after one night, you will only be a pile of white bones. Remember that." The man laughed weakly and said, "Even if that is the case, I can't go any further, your highness." Seeing his expression and hearing his voice, the prince knew it was difficult to sway him, so he sighed and lamented, "Oh, beauty, you have defeated a friend of mine right here in your gentle, enchanting kingdom. You are a poison-tipped arrow, flickering with fragrant flowers, shooting straight into the heart without pain, only a gentle wound. But I will forever defeat you, with mindfulness, with constant, long-term vigilance." Then, sorrowfully, he continued on his way with the remaining 4 people. The beauty-infatuated young man, after one night with the group of beauties, his flesh and blood were not enough for a full feast for the Yaksha women. On the second night, the 5 people seemed to have wandered into a world of enchanting and stirring sounds. At the head of the stream, the hillside, the bushes, the stone caves, everywhere echoed with gentle singing and melodies. Intermingled with the singing, melodies, and whispered intimacies were inviting laughter, coaxing, sometimes like a jealous lover, acting coquettish. The prince awakened immediately. That is honey poured into the ears. It is an invisible, intangible sword that sweetly pierces into the heart of willpower, into the resilient mind without a trace. Be mindful, friends. Whoever has a weak heart will lie down forever on the soft bed of the evil king and will never get up again. On the low hill, a group of fairies appeared and disappeared as if unreal, as if existing and not existing. A fairy appeared under the flower arch, uttering an inviting voice like a precious gem. How many moments are there in a spring night? Gentlemen, please come in here and join us in embracing the zither and playing a piece of arrival at Heavenly Terrace. One person suddenly slowed down. What's wrong? Does your leg hurt again? The prince asked. No. I have a stomach ache? The other man shook his head. The prince faintly heard the music seem to suddenly change, becoming extremely enchanting and mesmerizing, occasionally interspersed with a few groaning sounds, lascivious murmurs, soft utterances as if in pain, as if in pleasure. The prince was highly alert, but his heart still trembled several times. He gritted his teeth, patiently waited for his companion, and thought to himself, one moment of forgetfulness of mine, and here, tomorrow, there will be 5 piles of white bones. Please go, your highness. I will volunteer to die here. The man said deliriously. The prince sighed, summoning all his will and strength to utter a song that had never been heard before. O heavenly sound demon, you have won. Your rainbow-colored bridge of sound has gently brought my friend's soul to pleasure and death. I sing, praising your seductive and enchanting talent, which is even stronger than an army of thousands, even more terribly impactful than knives and swords. A word from a single war elephant, blunting the willpower and courageous strength of a supreme Sindhu breed warhorse. But your fine and invisible net cannot bind the heels of a disciple of an ascetic. Once again, the disciple of the ascetic has defeated you, O heavenly sound demon. I defeat you without you dying, without you withering even a single petal. I defeat you with a mind of peace, uprightness, and tranquility. My only and ultimate weapon is dwelling in mindfulness, is constant, long-term vigilance. After singing, the Yaksha women's sea of sounds suddenly disappeared into the sky, and the prince and the remaining 3 people continued on their way. But the remaining person the next morning was just a pile of white bones. In turn, the prince overcame. But in the heavenly fragrance forest, the fragrance-infatuated person was left behind. In the heavenly taste forest, the taste-infatuated person was left behind. In the heavenly touch forest, the touch-infatuated person was left behind. The prince was the only and last warrior to bravely step through 5 traps without needing to tie the sand amulet to his hair knot. The Yaksha queen pursed her lips, widened her eyes, and gathered the Yakshas together. You are useless. Only 6 prey, and you let 1 escape. Suffer the consequences. The Yaksha queen shrieked shrilly. The Yaksha group knelt down together. Please forgive us, your majesty. The Yaksha queen roared angrily. Are you wronged? They all answered in unison. We are wronged. We are truly out of our depth. How can we be able to defeat a disciple of an ascetic? Hearing this, the Yaksha queen softened her voice. Is that so? If he is truly a genuine disciple of the ascetics in Snow Mountain, then I will forgive you. Please take action and grab his heart, they replied. The Yaksha queen suddenly transformed into a 6-headed, 12-armed, 12-legged demon and laughed arrogantly, shaking the sky. If I take action, even his teacher, I will wrap in my skirt, let alone the disciple. Then she proudly shouted, Let you withdraw. When there is an order, you must gather fully in an instant. Leave that stubborn young brat to me. Then she immediately manifested into the appearance of a heavenly woman, so beautiful that birds fell from the sky and fish sank in the water, using her divine power to closely follow behind the prince. Speaking of the prince, after escaping the 5 types of temptations, stepping out of the forest with clear skies and earth, he told himself, Although I have won thanks to not being careless, thanks to dwelling in mindfulness and high vigilance, but it is not necessarily safe here. In the peaceful place of villages, of generous people, markets, and towns, who knows where the queen of the Yakshas still has traps laid out? Thinking this, the prince was absolutely vigilant and cautious. Darling, wait for me! The prince felt shocked and excited. Before he could react, a strange, intoxicating fragrance enveloped him, causing his nerve endings to tingle and tremble. He awakened, bit his tongue and spat out blood, but that enchanting sound, that strange fragrance made his body and mind seem dazed, half awake and half drunk, losing all ability to resist. Unconsciously, he turned his head to look back, and, oh heavens, he almost died standing. In this world, how could there be anyone so beautiful? Her entire being radiated, evoked, displayed completely and perfectly all the most perfect things of creation, along with the fullness, freshness, and abundance of sensual pleasure. The prince felt completely exhausted. All his fighting will was paralyzed. All calls of intelligence no longer echoed. He no longer obeyed her mind. A carnal instinct and desire from the silent region surged out. He put out both hands. Her allure was enticing, passionate, causing shivers throughout the body. And then, waiting. The ogress queen felt no surprise at this triumph. Even hermits and bodhisattvas had fallen prey to her on her bewitching jeweled bed. She rarely met defeat. She considered this young man insignificant. She approached, employing her eyes, smile, voice, scent, the embrace of offered affection and the sheer, delicate garments. The prince, dazed, walked toward her. The ogress queen tightened her embrace. Suddenly she recoiled, her face paling, terrified. Something, as quick as lightning and as piercingly sweet as a sharp arrow, pierced her chest, causing sharp pain and a sweat. Something else, like a blade, slashed right as she was about to touch the prince. The ogress queen stood stunned, horrified, her eyes wide with disbelief. As for the prince, after that moment, as if from a dark and dense place, a bright spot appeared, expanding gradually. All functions, senses, and will slowly returned. The prince understood everything, bit his tongue slightly, spat out a mouthful of blood, and walked away slowly. The prince knew. His hands went instinctively to his chest, where the amulet lay. Without this protective item, he would have fallen forever. Thanks to the power of the solitary Buddha elder, the ogress queen could not harm the prince and suffered a painful defeat. Even so, there's still, the ogress queen thought to herself, this is an incredibly difficult battle, but victory is only honorable against a worthy opponent. I still have heavenly flavors and heavenly touches and will repeatedly use heavenly forms and heavenly sounds. Occasionally, I must unleash a series of 5 ultimate weapons, but I must be careful, because it seems he has something very formidable on his chest. From that moment on, the ogress queen followed the prince like a shadow, sometimes on the right, sometimes on the left, sometimes in front, sometimes behind, using every method to seduce him. But now, after that dangerous moment of almost falling into the abyss, the prince regained his initial alertness and remained firm and steady as a mountain peak, unshakable. On the road, someone asked, "Hey, beauty, who is the person walking ahead of you?" The ogress queen replied meekly, "He is my young husband, gentlemen." "Hey, friend." When you have a young, beautiful wife, as stunning as a bouquet of flowers, as delicate as a flower pistil, as radiant as a garland, who has left her family to follow you and put her trust in you, why not slow down a little, walk together, hand in hand, or even closer, instead of being so cold and indifferent? The prince replied without looking sideways, "Be careful, she is either an ogress queen or an ogress boss. She is not my wife. She has seduced and eaten 5 of my companions." The ogress queen smiled charmingly and replied, "Oh, gentlemen, when a man has reason to be angry, he considers even his wife, who shares his pillow, an ogress or a demon." People believed her, but the prince kept walking quickly, ignoring everything. The ogress queen began to get annoyed and sullen. Sometimes she appeared pregnant. Sometimes she appeared with a child. Sometimes she carried a child in her arms. At each stop, the ogress queen presented beautiful and fragrant food. Just looking and smelling it was enough to make one drool, because these were heavenly fragrances and heavenly tastes. She decorated the sleeping place to be soft and seductive, like the bed of the Yama queen. Then she showed off her coquetry, exposing her back, her chest, her bare skin, using 100 plans, 1,000 schemes to make the prince aroused and succumb. The ogress queen was wrong. Our prince was forever destined to be victorious. With only a short distance to the kingdom of Gandhara, the prince boldly turned to face the ogress queen, smiled, and said, "Ogress queen of the demon army, you are no longer invincible." The ogress queen smiled back and replied, "I don't believe that. There will come a time when you will fall and crawl to lick my heels." The prince laughed heartily, then his face turned serious. "There will come a time when you will disappear into the darkness." Before the gate to the palace, the prince stopped at the shrine, thinking, if there is danger, it will be in the final moment. I will ensure absolute safety with the amulet. He took the thread and tied the amulet to his hair knot, took up his sword and stood up. As evening turned to night, the ogress queen hoped to defeat the prince tonight with a final tactic. But as soon as she stepped into the door, she retreated in fear. The prince stood motionless, holding his sword like a statue of an arhat, emanating an inviolable power. She looked in every so often, but the prince did not change his posture, the sword flashing in the moonlight, unmoving. Something cold struck her forehead, making her tremble. The ogress queen sighed, but she stubbornly waited. At the third watch, knowing it was a crucial moment, if she didn't win, she would be defeated forever, the ogress queen mobilized all the most mesmerizing tactics of demons. She transformed into dozens of heavenly maidens, beautiful beyond earthly measure, naked, appearing and disappearing, half hidden, fluttering around the prince, murmuring sweet nothings. The fragrance of the heavens filled the room. The sounds of lewd words mixed with melodious music as if drawing one into an eternally delightful indulgence all night long. But the ogress queen failed. Still unwilling to give up, she transformed into a noble, high-class maiden, leaning against the door. At dawn, King Gantara was touring the capital and came to the shrine. Seeing the girl, he immediately ordered the elephant to stop. The king was shaken, sweating profusely, his heart racing and his breath quickening. As a supreme king all his life, he had never mastered such a fresh, beautiful, flirtatious flower. After a long while, the king asked almost breathlessly, "Who are you? Where do you come from? Are you married?" The ogress queen replied, "I am married. My husband is resting there inside the shrine. I must stand outside the door, awaiting him. I hope your majesty will forgive me." Hearing this, the prince said to the king, "She is not my wife. She is an ogress queen, tempting me. She has eaten 5 of our companions. Please be careful, your majesty." The ogress queen said, "Oh, great king, when a man has changed his mind, he can say whatever he wants." The king hesitated and looked at the prince again. "Indeed, you are not the owner of that flesh and blood flower?" The prince said, "Not the owner, not acquainted, and afraid she will eat me." The king laughed heartily. "Then that's good. Eat me then, ogress queen. In this kingdom, what has no owner belongs to me." The king called the girl over, lifted her onto the elephant's back, had her sit next to him, and paraded around once before taking her to the palace and placing her on the position of queen. Soon, this was rumored everywhere. The curious went to see the girl. The inquisitive went to see the prince. Everyone was surprised that the prince refused to accept such a beautiful wife. Some officials and elderly ministers came to the prince to understand the matter fully. The prince honestly recounted the temptations of the ogress queen throughout the journey and how she had eaten 5 of his companions. The ministers stood up, bowed deeply to the prince, and respectfully exclaimed, "How great is this victory! To conquer one's own desires in a single thought is greater than defeating 10,000 soldiers. You are truly a great, pure hermit." Then they lamented, "Why is our kingdom so unlucky, not producing a king who possesses even 1/16 of this hermit's qualities? Alas, how many dozens, even hundreds of wives does it take to satisfy that insatiable lust? The country will be ruined by that female demon." That night on the royal bed, the ogress queen sobbed, and the king kindly asked, "Is there anything you are unhappy about?" The ogress queen replied coquettishly, "Great king, your majesty found me on the road, brought me to the palace, and placed me in the position of queen. I dare not forget this kindness. But living here among all the concubines, palace maids, they will surely see me as an enemy. Your majesty knows how they will speak of me, doesn't he? Tell me, my dear, great king, who is your father? Who is your mother? What is your lineage? Alas, they will scold me, humiliate me, say such foolish things. They will also sneer and say, 'What are you doing here, taking on the position of queen, just someone picked up by the king on the road?'" She whispered, then raised her voice, both graceful and angry. The king seemed thoughtful at this reality, but being intoxicated by heavenly forms, fragrances, and touches, he said, "Then what can I do to help you, my dear?" "What do you mean? You can't." The ogress queen sulked. "Surely your majesty doesn't love me. Surely, with the power of the supreme king, you say you can't help. Fine, then let's end our relationship from today." She sat up resolutely. The king panicked and held her back. "I love you most in the world. I love you more than my father and mother, more than the country, more than my ancestors, temples, more than heaven and earth." "Then what is it? What do you want?" The ogress queen softened her voice. "Your majesty only needs to give me the power and influence over this kingdom, and I will ignore all the gossip." The king was very troubled. "My dear," the king said sweetly, soothingly, "even as king, I have no power or influence over the innocent people. I only have power and influence over those who break the law, who do wrong. So, what power and influence can I give you?" The ogress queen thought for a moment, knowing that her plan was successful. "Great king," she said, "if not the power of the entire kingdom, then the power within the inner palace will do. After all, as queen, I have such power, don't I? The king agreed. So the next day, the ogress queen, with her retinue of maids, used her power to control all the palace rooms, entrances, counted the number of people, and strictly controlled them. She kept all the keys and ordered no one to go anywhere until further notice. Your task is to rewrite the following paragraph, writing exactly as it is without adding any notes or annotations. Everyone was angry, but could only grit their teeth and endure it because her authority was sealed by the king with a royal stamp. The next night, on the royal bed, the ogress queen severed the king's life, ate all his tendons, skin, flesh, and blood, leaving only bones and hair. Then, using her divine power, she summoned hundreds of ogress subordinates, gave them the keys to the rooms, and had them eat all the palace maids, even the chickens, dogs. Nothing was spared. They didn't bother to eat large animals like elephants and horses, but killed them for entertainment. At dawn, the ogress queen flew out of the city gate triumphantly, followed by her subordinates, returning to their dwelling, leaving behind an empty, cold palace. The sun had been up for a long time, but no one opened the city gate. No one announced the time. The high and low buildings were silent. The east and west gates were desolate. The soldiers outside the city became suspicious and shouted. Some broke through the city walls and doors. Everywhere, bones, flesh, and blood were scattered. No one survived. The whole city was shaken, and everyone came to see. The senior ministers convened a meeting of officials to handle everything on the pile of bone remains. After everything was cleaned up, an emergency meeting was formed. They discussed the vacant throne. What the young man said about the ogress queen is true. And our king died because of lust. Our country needs a righteous, moral king so that the people can benefit. Why don't we summon that young man immediately? He is currently at the shrine, fighting the ogress queen with his sword for 2 days and one night, without food or drink. His body is as immovable as a statue of an arhat, and his expression is peaceful and calm as the void. He whose 6 senses are so pure that he overcomes the 6 temptations of the demon army, perseveres, is courageous, and peacefully dwells in mindfulness to conquer his own desires. Is he not worthy for this kingdom to revere for thousands of years, let alone be the next king? The civil and military officials unanimously applauded, joyful and delighted. So the palace was decorated with lights, and flowers made the green grass even greener. Incense was burned everywhere to remove the stench of blood. The bloodstains on the walls, windows, and floor were cleaned. Civil and military officials, men, women, old and young, followed in droves behind the sedan, noisily going to the shrine. Meanwhile, the people throughout the capital, hearing the news, set up incense tables and worshipped from afar, joyfully laughing, cheering, dancing, and filling the sky with happiness and peace. The prince performed the coronation ceremony, ruled the kingdom righteously, performed meritorious deeds such as giving alms, and followed his own path. After the Buddha finished speaking, he was silent like heaven and earth in deep meditation. The whole assembly was silent as well, immersed in thought, without a cough, without a movement of a finger, without a coarse breath. They respected the silence of the teacher, they respected the Dharma, they respected their own silence. After a long time, the world-honored one spoke again in a voice with 24 excellent qualities. Monks! How rare is this story, this profoundly subtle Dharma that has never been heard before. What do you know? What do you understand? Monks! Monks! That prince who overcame the 5 temptations is the Tathagata. It is because of overcoming the 5 temptations that the prince attained the kingship. Monks! If that were all there was to the meaning, the Tathagata would not call it profound and subtle. Why is that? Oh, how great is the merit of the Dharma! How wonderful is the Dharma! How rare is the arrangement of the Dharma! Monks, that Dharma must be understood clearly as follows. The 5 temptations are arranged in 5 different temptation forests. The 5 companions who fell represent the eyes, ears, nose, tongue, body, and the upward striving mind. Perseverance, courage, and peaceful dwelling in mindfulness are embodied by the prince. Monks, on the path of seeking enlightenment, the progress is difficult, arduous, and full of pitfalls. If one does not fall, one still exists in the Tathagata's teachings. If one does not fall, still holds the sword, and does not waver, then in the end, one still attains the flavor, attains the flower kingdom. That flower kingdom must be further understood as true happiness, supreme peace, bliss, nirvana. And why must the prince set out within 7 days? This the Tathagata has skillfully taught, skillfully preaching the four foundations of mindfulness of the Tathagata. There is no need to spend 7 years, 7 months, but only 7 days of thoroughness, single-mindedness, mindfulness, and peaceful dwelling in mindfulness, and the supreme flower kingdom will be in that one's hand.